All right, let's get right into it. When you think about precious metals, your mind probably jumps straight to gold and silver, right? Of course it does. But here's the thing. What if I told you there are two hidden heroes? A couple of unsung metals that pretty much all of us use every single day, and we don't even know it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret world of platinum and palladium. And I want to kick things off with a simple question. Think about your car for a second. You've got the engine, the tech, the comfy seats. But what if the single most valuable part of your entire car wasn't any of those things? Because believe it or not, it probably is. Yeah, it's hidden away deep inside your exhaust system. We're only talking about a few grams of platinum and palladium. Now, they don't have the glamour of gold, not at all. Think of them more like the quiet industrial workhorses of the metal world. But man, are they essential. So what is the big deal with these metals? What makes them so special? Let's take a closer look at your car's secret ingredient, because it turns out they're part of a very, very exclusive club. They're called noble metals. And that's not just some fancy, cool-sounding name. It actually means they're chemically, well, they're kind of lazy, in a good way. Just like gold, they don't really react with other stuff. They don't rust, acid doesn't bother them. They have this chemical nobility that just makes them unbelievably tough against, the wear and tear of time and nature. But here's where it gets really interesting. These metals basically have two superpowers. First up, they are ridiculously durable. Platinum's melting point is over 1,700 degrees Celsius. So the insane hellish heat inside a car engine, yeah, that's like a warm summer day for them. But their second power is the real game changer. It's their catalytic magic. Think of them as super efficient chemical matchmakers. They speed up reactions like crazy, but they themselves don't get used up in the process. And this quote just says it all. A single gram of platinum, just one, can take hundreds of grams of a deadly poison. We're talking carbon monoxide, and instantly transform it into harmless stuff that we can all breathe. That's not just science, it's practically magic. And that magic is happening inside your car every single time you drive. So how on earth did these magical metals end up in basically every car on the road? Well, that story starts with a huge global problem that needed a very specific solution. And it ended up creating a new standard for the entire world. Let's hop in the time machine and go back to the 1970s. People were getting really worried about air pollution. So you get these landmark laws like the U.S. Clean Air Act, which basically told car companies, you have to cut the toxic junk coming out of your cars, and you have to do it now. The industry was scrambling, and the elegant, brilliant solution they came up with was the catalytic converter. And today, it's standard equipment on pretty much every gas-powered car on the planet. So how does this little box of magic actually work? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Think of it in 3 steps. Step 1, nasty, toxic gases come flowing in from the engine. Step 2, those hot gases pass over this honeycomb-like structure that's coated with a super thin layer of platinum and palladium. And bam, that's where the magic happens. The chemical reaction kicks off instantly. And step 3, what comes out the other end is basically harmless stuff. Carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and even a little water vapor. It's an amazing little chemical filter, just cleaning up the engine's mess. And if you're wondering just how big a deal this is, just look at the numbers. A massive 40% of all platinum that gets mined is used for these car parts. That's more than jewelry, more than industrial stuff, more than investment. And that tells you something really important. The price of these metals isn't set by fashion trends. It's driven by what's happening on car factory production lines all around the world. Okay, so this leads us to a really, really important question. If the entire global auto industry depends on these two metals, then who controls them? Who's got the supply? And this is where things start to get a little complicated. This is where geopolitics comes into play. You see, with something like gold or silver, you can find it pretty much all over the world, but not these two. The supply of platinum and palladium is, let's just say, dangerously concentrated in just a couple of spots. 70%. Just let that number sink in for a second. For any resource that the entire world needs, that is a huge, huge concentration. Yep, 7 out of every 10 ounces of platinum dug out of the earth comes from the deep mines of just one country, South Africa. Talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. That creates what you'd call a massive geopolitical supply risk. And the situation for its sister metal, palladium, well, it's pretty much the same precarious story. 40% of the world's supply comes from Russia. So you've got the world's two key catalyst metals, and they're controlled by just two countries. And that means any little bit of instability, a strike, a sanction, a political issue in either one of those places can send shockwaves through the entire global economy. And we don't have to imagine what that looks like. We saw it happen in real time. In 2022, after the invasion of Ukraine, fears about supply disruptions from Russia caused the price of palladium to just go through the roof. It more than doubled, rocketing past $3,000 an ounce. For a little while there, it was even more expensive than gold. It was a very stark reminder of just how fragile this supply chain really is. But now we're facing this massive shift. The age of the internal combustion engine, well, it seems to be winding down. So what happens to the metals that basically defined that era? This brings us to a really fascinating crossroads. It's the obvious question, right? If electric vehicles don't have engines and so they don't need catalytic converters, does that just mean it's game over for platinum and palladium demand? It seems totally logical, but the real story, it's a whole lot more complex. And here's the central paradox. It's like a tale of two possible futures for clean energy. On one path, you've got battery electric vehicles. If they win the race, yeah, demand for these metals could absolutely collapse. But there's another path, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And if they take off, demand for platinum could explode. Why? Because hydrogen cars need a catalyst to make electricity. And guess what the best catalyst for that job is? You got it, platinum. And don't count palladium out either. It has this incredible, almost unbelievable property. It can absorb up to 900 times its own weight in hydrogen. I mean, it soaks it up like a sponge. And that unique skill could make it absolutely critical for storing and transporting hydrogen safely in the future. And this quote just captures that potential pivot perfectly. The very metals that helped us clean up the environmental mess of the oil age could be the exact same ones that unlock the door to the hydrogen age. They could go from being the guards at the end of the exhaust pipe to being the pioneers of a whole new fuel source. So we end on this final, critical question. The future of clean energy is still being written. And this battle between two technologies, batteries versus hydrogen, it is far from over. And the outcome of that fight is ultimately going to decide the fate of these two remarkable noble metals. So, what do you think's going to win?